Hello everybody, welcome back to American Textbook Reading. My name is Brian Stewart, and today we're going over Science Book 4, Lesson 2, How Seeds Are Scattered. So in this unit, we will discover what kinds of seeds there are, and of course, how seeds are scattered. As usual, we start with the vocabulary, and you may have noticed a difficult word in the unit title, How Seeds Are Scattered. Well, what does scatter mean? Scatter means to throw or drop objects over an area, usually a wide area. Think about your room, right? If you come home and you take off your clothes, you change from your school clothes to your home comfortable clothes. And how do you do it? You just throw your shirt over there, maybe your pants over there, your belt over there. You scatter your clothes all over the room, okay? Hopefully don't do that. Mom doesn't like it, right? But to scatter is to throw objects or things in a wide area. Not very neatly. Like the picture shows, we see seeds are just tossed on the ground randomly. Okay. Next, we have blow. Right? How strong can you blow? If you're young, you can blow really strongly. Usually, if you have a birthday cake, you have many candles on your cake, and you blow them out. We believe that if you blow out all the candles in one blow, your wish will come true. So, to blow is to make something move by a current of air. Of course, we blow, but blowing doesn't mean that a person or an animal has to do it. It could just happen in nature naturally from the wind, right? If there's a strong wind, the wind blows. And we have a video to show what's going on here. Also, this is very important because as you can see, the boy, he's blowing on a flower. And I just want to point this out before we watch the video. What kind of flower is that? That is called a D-A-N, dandelion. It's not a lion, it's a dandelion. A dandelion is that type of flower. Let's watch a video of the dandelion being blown in the wind. Here we go. There's the dandelion. Let's watch as the wind blows it. Okay, here we go. There's the wind. The wind comes along and blows it. Now what happened? All these little things here, actually you see these little pieces here? Those are seeds, right? The wind comes along and blows the dandelion seeds and they are scattered, okay? And that's how the plant reproduces itself because new plants will grow. By the way, it's very interesting that people will say dandelions, you can predict the weather by looking at the dandelion. If it's nice weather, the dandelion has a nice ball shape like we saw at the beginning of the video. But if there's high humidity, it's going to rain, then the petals of the dandelion close up over the flower. So if you see that, you say, oh, it's going to rain. Interesting. Okay. Next word is land. Now, if something is flying in the air, like a dandelion seed that's blowing in the wind, after a while the wind will stop or get weaker, and the dandelion seed will come down and touch back onto land, and then we say that it lands. So land is a noun, right? It's the ground that you stand on, but land is also a verb because we use it to say that something that was flying comes back to the ground. So to come to the ground after moving in the air, to come back to the ground, to land. Okay. Next we have ripe. Ripe is an important word, especially if you're going to eat fruit or other types of plants or vegetables, right? Ripe. Ripe means that it is fully grown and ready to eat. So you don't want to eat an unripe apple. Ugh, that doesn't taste very good. You want to eat a ripe apple or a ripe orange or ripe corn. Whatever the plant is that you eat, it should be ripe. That means it's fully grown and it is ready to eat. Our next word is stick. Now, stick has a couple of different meanings. Of course, you can say, I have a stick, right? You have a tree branch and you wave it around. That's a noun, but we're not talking about that definition here. Stick here is a verb. It's a verb in this definition. It means for one object to become attached to another. And you can see in this picture, you're probably familiar with this situation. You walk in the woods or you walk in a grassy area where there's a lot of plants. And after you go through, you look down at your pants or your socks especially, and you see these little things that are sticking to your socks or your pants. And of course, that's what it means to stick, to attach to something. Tape is sticky, right? If you want to stick two things together, use a piece of tape. Or glue. Glue is also sticky. So stick can be used as a noun. It can be used as a verb. It can also be used as an adjective, sticky. It is sticky. Glue is sticky. Tape is sticky. Parts of plants are sticky. They will stick to you. Okay, next. Drop. Drop, of course, just means to let something fall or to fall by itself. Of course, it's a verb. If you just let go of something, it will drop. Of course, when the earlier example we looked at with the dandelion seeds, they're flying in the wind is blowing, so the dandelion seed is flying in the air. What happens when the wind stops? Whoop, the dandelion seed drops to the ground. It lands, okay? So to drop means to fall from the air or fall from a high place down to a lower place. It can mean to land if the object winds up on the ground, okay? So there's different kinds of landings. There's good landings and not so good landings. Okay, anyway, to drop. Burr. Now, we talked about stick. Remember when we saw that picture for stick? We saw those little pieces of the plant that sticks to your socks. They're really hard to get out, aren't they? Well, what part of the plant is that? We call that a burr. Burr are little hooks on a seed that can stick to things. And of course, many plants will do this. They'll have the little tiny hooks, very small, but if you look at them carefully, especially with a magnifying glass, you can see that the little parts of the part of the plant, they're like little hooks, and those hooks grab on to your clothing. And they really like socks, but also pants, and they'll grab onto those and stick with you as you move. So burr is little hooks on a seed that can stick to things. And those are the things that are on your socks or your pants and your shoes. Okay. Fur. Well, first we had burr, now we have fur. The ending sound of R. Burr, fur. In this case, fur, of course, is the hair that covers some animals. Okay, I've got kind of hairy arms, but don't call this fur, right? It's not that thick. I don't have that much hair. But if it's really a lot of hair growing really close together and you cannot see the skin, we call that fur. Look at your dog. Maybe you have a pet dog or a cat or a mouse. That, if you look at the animal, they have very thick hair growing out of their skin. We call that fur. It's the hair that covers some animals. Not all animals, but many animals, especially mammals, have fur, but not humans. We don't have fur, so don't say that about a human being. It's not nice. Okay, anyway, good. Okay, so those are our words for the lesson. Okay, the first idea for this lesson, of course, is how are seeds scattered? When you think about plants don't really move, right? I mean, they grow in one spot. Sure, they can move this way, but they don't really move from where they're growing out of the ground. They don't have legs. They can't get up and walk around. So how do plants produce other plants? If they make smaller plants right where they are, well, then they will die, right? Because there's not enough land or water or sunlight in that area around the plant to support many plants. So the plants have to have some way to spread out and to grow in other areas. So to do that, they need to scatter their seeds. How do they do that? Well, we saw one example when we saw the video. We saw the dandelion will scatter their seeds by the wind, and these seeds can travel very far and make new plants far away from the mother plant or the parent plant. Okay? Now, seeds can also be scattered by water, right? And here we see, this looks like a coconut, right? A coconut and a little coconut plant, a baby coconut tree is growing out of the coconut while it's floating in the water. And that's why coconuts will float on water, because the plant, if it drops the coconut, hits water, it might float to another island. And then the new coconut tree will grow on another island far away from the parent plant. So that's interesting. Also, seeds are scattered by animals. You'll notice we talked about fir, we talked about burr, and we talked about stick, right? So animals, when they walk through plants, the seeds might stick to the animal's fur and then drop off later, and that's how they are scattered in nature, and that's how plants can spread out and make sure that they, reproduce over large areas of land. Okay, the second idea is different kinds of seeds. And we can kind of get the idea of different kinds of seeds when we talked about the first main idea, how seeds are scattered, right? We see that some are small and they can blow in the wind, while others might be heavier or bigger, but they can float on water. So there are many different kinds of seeds. In this chart, we can see 3 different types of seeds, and we can see also how they are scattered. For example, we have the maple tree. The maple tree has interesting looking seeds. Of course, that's not the whole seed. The seeds are down in here, right? But they have a covering or case, I guess you could say, that looks like wings, right? They don't flap. It's not like a butterfly actually moving the wings. They don't move, but they're shaped very well so that the wind can catch them. And the seeds of the maple tree are scattered through the air because with that shape, the wind can easily pick them up and carry them very far away. And that's how the maple tree will spread or scatter its seeds. Next, we have the water lily. And water lily, we can see right away, okay, those seeds are scattered by water. But the water lily has seeds that float on lakes. Float means to stay at the surface of the water. So the seeds will stay at the surface of the water. If they sink, they'll get stuck on the bottom, right? So they stay on the surface of the water and they can move to different parts of the lake or even down rivers to other parts or other areas of land. And that's how the water lily will spread its seeds. Now, chestnut tree. Of course, you know chestnuts. I think in Korean you say pam, right? Those are delicious, especially in the late fall, around November and even in December. People will cook chestnuts on a fire. They're very warm and they're very delicious, aren't they? But of course, when you see the chestnut that you get from the store or from the people selling them on the street, they're brown, they have a thick, smooth covering, right? But that's not how they grow on the tree. On the tree, they have another skin around them it looks like fur, and that's actually little burrs. It's the little hooks. And chestnut burrs, right? You can see them here. It looks like the hair here, but these have the little hooks on them, and they'll stick onto the fur. They'll stick on the fur or feathers of animals. So fur of normal animals, of mammals, or they get stuck on the feathers of birds. And especially if you get stuck on the feather bird, you can travel very far, right? Because birds will fly long distances and then they fall off in another area. So different kinds of seeds will use different types of techniques or methods to spread out, right? Maybe they're light and they're small, so they can be carried by the wind. Maybe they might be larger, but they can float on water. They're not heavy, they're very light, so they float on water. And some seeds even use little hooks to stick onto animals or birds that do move and can move the seeds for them. So it's a very interesting idea. Okay, now it's time for the reading. So as usual, read along with me or read along in your mind. Practice the pronunciation and focus on the vocabulary for this lesson. Are you ready? Let's begin. Plants grow from seeds. It is difficult for a seed to grow in the same space as its parent. If seeds are scattered, they are more likely to grow into new plants. Seeds are scattered in many ways. The wind can blow seeds away from a plant. Where a seed lands, it might grow into a new plant. Sometimes the seeds are inside fruits. Animals like to eat ripe fruit. Sometimes birds take fruit from a plant and fly away. When they land and eat the fruit, the seeds fall out. Birds can scatter seeds over a large area, as we talked about. Some seeds have burrs. These seeds can stick to an animal's fur. The animal moves around, and the seeds can drop off the animal in different areas. Seeds can be scattered this way. The wind and animals help scatter seeds, and so plants have more space to live in. Okay, that's the reading, and it's interesting, as we talked about before, this reading kind of shows you how plants can continue to grow and how they can make sure that there's enough room for their descendants or their babies, if you will, to grow. Because as the reading pointed out, if there's not enough area around the mother or parent plant for more plants to grow, it gets too crowded, right? There's not enough resources, so they have to spread out. Okay. How is this reading organized? Now here we're looking at cause and effect. And basically we have three different causes and three different effects. That's what they're breaking this down into. The wind can be a cause, the animals can be a cause, and also seeds with burrs can be a cause. That's our three causes here. So let's fill in the blanks in this chart. First, we have the cause, and that results in an effect. What is the cause? The cause is the wind can beep seeds away from a plant. So what do we talk about? Remember this action, right? What am I doing? I am blowing. So the wind can blow seeds away from a plant. That's the cause. What is the effect? Well, the seeds land in different areas. That's the effect. And so seeds have new areas, a lot of resources. They have enough resources to grow. Hopefully, if they land in the right area. Okay, next we have animals like to eat fruit and move around. So fruit is our noun, right? So we need some kind of adjective to describe fruit. What kind of fruit do animals eat? Well, of course, animals aren't going to eat fruit that is not ready to eat, so they're going to eat ripe fruit. Ripe means ready to eat, fully grown and ready to eat. It doesn't always mean ready to eat. I mean, some things can be ripe and you don't eat them. It just means fully grown. But when we're talking about plants, vegetables, fruits, things like that, ripe means ready to eat. So animals eat ripe fruit, they move around, and then this way animals can do what? They can scatter seeds. They can scatter seeds. There's different ways. in the reading, it said that birds, when they eat the fruit, right, the seeds fall out. Other animals, when they eat the fruit, the seed passes through their body and comes out the other end when they go to the bathroom. So that's another way that seeds can be distributed or scattered throughout a large area. Didn't say that in the reading, but that's an interesting thing that does happen. Okay, seeds with burrs can what? Okay, remember, if you're walking through a field, there's a lot of grass, those burrs do what? They stick to you. So seeds with burrs can stick to and beep animals. So stick to animals and drop off animals. So first they stick, of course. After a while, maybe the animal scratches, or licks it or rubs up against a tree, and the seed will drop off. So seeds with burrs can stick to and drop off animals. Stick to animals and drop off animals. You don't have to repeat animals, right? So it's the same object. You don't have to repeat it. Stick to animals and drop off animals. Stick to and drop off animals. Okay, good. And of course, the effect of that is that the seeds will be scattered. In fact, all of the effects are that seeds are scattered, but through different means, through different causes. But it's always the same effect. Seeds are scattered, plants have room to grow, more plants can grow in a larger area, and this is how plants can spread out and ensure the survival of their species. Okay, interesting lesson. So if you ever wondered, how do plants spread out? How does a forest grow? Don't all the trees grow? Shouldn't all the trees grow in the same area? No, they are scattered around. And now you know how plants can occupy large areas of land or even travel to new lands, new islands, or downstream or far away by the wind. So it's very interesting to see how nature works. Okay, well, that's our lesson for today. Thanks for studying with me. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.